we are going to jump in the car and then drop Isaac at work, and then we're going to head to Southampton. So we're basically trying to explore, is the church, is faith, are there communities of faith in the church that promote positive mental health?
Okay.
Does having a faith make a difference to like mental health, all that kind of stuff?
Sounds like a really interesting episode. Isaac, are you going to talk about your mental health stuff as well?
I think so, given the opportunity.
You mentioned a bit about in your book about some of the stuff that happened to your dad. Could you just spell out a little bit more about what that was like?
Yeah, man. So 2017, he got some lumps on his neck that my mum was quite worried about. But my mum worries a lot, so everyone just thought, do you know what I mean? Like, it's nothing. But then they went to the hospital to get it checked out. When they went to hospital, they were like, doesn't look right. So they kept him in under observation, and his condition deteriorated. And then a few days later, he passed away. But just before he passed away, they ran some tests, and they came back after he had passed and found out he had cancer. It's called T-cell lymphoma, cancer of the blood. And up until that point, I hadn't really lost anyone that super, super close to me. So yeah, it really hit home, and I kind of struggled to deal with it. But because I'm the eldest, I knew I had to worry about, touch my mum. Knew I had to worry about like my mum, my little brother, the family. So I just went into the mode of like, right, you just need to get stuff done, like plan the funeral, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of pushed my own feelings to the side. And then kind of a couple months later, just all came out, just started crying. I was on tour with Matt Redman actually in LA, and I went to the beach and I just started crying. And then I told Emma, and I think he was actually quite happy that I cried.
Yeah, I think because when you know that someone's going through something really deep, but then they don't necessarily express emotion in the way that you assume that they would, you kind of worry for them a little bit, because you're like, are they dealing with it? Are they not? So then when he said that he had cried, although that's not always his way of processing, I was happy because I was like, he's got an outlet rather than it just feeling, But I love crying, so.
How did it affect you? Like, how did it affect the way you lived? Like, whilst you were kind of dealing with it before you had this big release?
I just think I wasn't myself. Like it was like this cloud was over my head. I stole this from a book that Emma actually made me read. But it was like a cloud over my head. No one else can see it, just me. And it was really hard to pull myself out of that. The only thing that made me realize I was different was anytime someone complained about one of their issues, I would just be like, shut up, like, because your dad hasn't died. Like, so if Emma came home from work and she was like, I had an annoying day at work, I would just think, whatever, man, like, it's not that deep. So I just started to have less empathy for other people's problems, do you know what I mean? So that's one big thing that I realised I was doing.
How was that for you, Emma, watching it kind of unfold?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one because I guess that grief has no timeline, and sometimes you might think there's like a week where things feel a bit lighter and it feels like, he seems, I don't know, more himself, even though it's like you never really go back to being the same person again, but like just feeling like he wasn't necessarily feeling as heavy or as weighed down with emotion. So then you think things are kind of going to get better, and then sometimes it just goes worse again, and you're like, okay. You
guys have both got a faith. Do you think that your faith and like your relationship with the church helps whilst you were going through this? Like, did you have a positive experience with the church whilst you were managing this?
It's a community, man. That's the most valuable thing about church. But the one thing I found was the struggle. I don't think in church, or my church anyway, at the time, there was a space to keep the tissues out for a bit longer. Like, sit in that space where it's okay to struggle, it's okay to go through pain, and we can just sit in this uncomfortable space for a while. It's always like, all right, cool, you're hurting, but God's good, so let's like move on.
Yeah.
And I don't know if church is the best at trusting that God can still be good even if people are hurting. Like, everything doesn't have to be okay all the time.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? That doesn't mean God's any less powerful. The fact that I'm going through some tough times.
Once you had this like release on the beach and like you kind of cried and had this little outburst, like, was that the start of like a healing process?
I think I surprised myself because I'm not really a crier. Like Emma, we could be watching like a comedy and she'll be crying. What's the thing? She cried at Ted Lasso the other day. And it was like a completely, it wasn't a sad scene. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think because I cried, I shocked myself. And it didn't feel like I was just crying for my dad. It felt like I was crying for everything that I had kept in for my whole life. All kinds of trauma. It just came out in that moment. And while it was just out, I thought, okay, maybe this is the time to try and deal with it. But I don't think, if I wasn't with Emma, I don't know if I would have had the same intensity, like, and the same get up and go to like want to go counselling and stuff. Because that's not something me or my family have ever done. I recognise that every action is a reaction and everything comes from somewhere. And counselling helped me look back and thought, oh, that's the reason I do this, or this is the reason I'm like that.
It's semi-final day and I'm off to Wembley to chat about my favourite thing, football. Come on, England. My name's Guvna B. I'm a rapper, author and broadcaster. I'm also a Christian. Many people think that Christianity is boring, untrue and irrelevant. But I'm going on a journey around the UK to discover whether there are stories where the church, Christianity and faith are making a difference in people's lives. I'm taking my mate Josh and we're planning to have a lot of fun on the way. As we ask, is God dead? Josh is picking me up from work in Wembley and we're going to grab a coffee before heading to the south coast for the day.
Fancy seeing you here.
How's it going? You okay?
Yeah, I'm alright, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Good to see you. How was
You
work?
too. Not bad, obviously, semi-final day.
Yes.
So everyone's super excited. Do you know what's mad though? Like, obviously with football being such a male-dominated sport and men in general not being super open with how they feel, it's quite sick to see guys like open up about, you know, football and the joy that it brings and how happy they feel and how like the last year's been super tough, but this has brought people together and helped them turn a corner.
Yeah.
You don't really hear like guys talking about that stuff, man.
Not at all.
So that's definitely been one good thing that's come from it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I find it hard, like at times. I remember 2017 kind of losing my dad and thinking, oh, I don't really want to talk about this, like I internalise it, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think we can all go through it, man. Have you had any times in your life where you've like struggled mentally to be vulnerable?
Yeah, I think it's only in the last couple of years really that I've been honest with myself about my mental health and admitted to myself and to others that maybe there is something a bit more going on.
Sit up there, it's getting a bit deep.
For me, there was like one moment where like I had a bit of a traumatic event with an earthquake and tsunami over whilst I was travelling, and so that kind of triggered it for me.
Earthquake and tsunami?
Well, it was I was on a beach in Bali with my sister, and there was like a massive 7.1 magnitude earthquake. And, then there was a massive tsunami warning, like a red grade tsunami warning. So we tried to flee the island, but we couldn't actually at the time, so we had to stay there.
Man.
And we basically were waiting for this massive wave to come. There was no security on the island. There was no like armed forces or like authority figures, and all the locals had fled the island. So it was literally just a load of travellers and tourists on this island waiting for this.
Just left to kind of fend for yourselves?
Yeah, yeah.
How long ago was that?
2018, 3 years ago.
So do you find that, you know, 3 years later, that event still affects you?
100%.
Or do you reckon it's just something in your past?
Yeah, I can't get past it. I think, I think PTSD for me was the thing that like I struggled with, and also like, the guilt, because 5,000 people died in that event, and so coming home with my sister, being alive, whilst it was like, yes, happy that we're good and like we're safe and with our family again, the guilt of being one of the lucky ones.
Survivor's guilt.
Yeah, which is, I guess, I don't even know if that's normal.
Was that the first time in a while you've been open about the earthquake and the tsunami?
Yeah, it's so weird. I got a bit wobbly talking about it. It's just, I'm normally fine talking about it. spoken about it quite a bit, but yeah, I guess it's just a bit of, in my mind, I put it in a box and kind of put it away, and then every now and again I have to get that box out and, and kind of relive it all. So yeah, it brings back a few things, but it's no, I think it's important that we chat, and yeah, I think if we don't start all being honest about it, then nothing's ever going to change, is it?
Good, man. Like, big respect to you. And obviously it's a bit awkward, but sometimes you just got to come in for a hug, right?
Come on.
We're heading to Southampton to meet some guys from an organisation called Bridge the Gap, who have created a community where men can play football and open up a bit. We're meeting Sam Griswood, who went along to Bridge the Gap a couple of years ago to hear his story.
So that we'd meet for a beer occasionally, and then he, out of the blue, said he was starting this football charity called Bridge the Gap. He's invited me to play football, but like before then, I just like living a mad life.
Yeah. When you say mad,
Like sales, recruitment, everything that goes along with that lifestyle, boozing. I'm struggling a bit. I was struggling, not struggling a bit.
did you have the awareness at the time to recognise that you were struggling?
No,
Yeah.
no. It took a while. So like, I lost quite a few people like big in my life from like a young age. So like I lost a friend to suicide when I was 15, and then like lost my granddad, who was like my like father figure at the time, and then from that just cracked on, just overrides, keep going. And then Tristan just started football, invited me to play football, and after the first week, I went out that weekend, got absolutely smashed, and then broke my arm, which then meant I couldn't play football anymore. Yeah, but then Tristan was like, "Why don't you come to Alpha?" So yeah, Alpha's great. So it's a course, but it's a course that looks like the basis of the Christian faith. You're in an environment where you can just talk to people, and it was like talking about things I've never really spoken about, like forgiveness and like how I feel and stuff I haven't let go of. And like it was just like enlightening, and just being around like community at Bridge the Gap, and then community at Alpha, where you've just been able to talk and just be your real self. So for so long I was just not being my real self.
You know, like over the last few years, there's been a lot of talk about mental health, and the good thing is that it feels like that conversation's being normalised a little bit. Do you actually think that we're progressing and people are better equipped in this generation to deal with it in a healthy way, with more things like Bridge the Gap becoming available, or feel like there's still so much more work to do?
I think it's a bit of both. Like I think it's phenomenal seeing like the amount of people speaking about it, and that's through having places like Bridge the Gap to go to. I think there's still so much that can be done, but I think massively so, like having communities like Bridge the Gap where you can talk and share is key to, especially for men. It's definitely a journey, and I think mental health is always a journey. I don't think mental health is something that's fixed. So you can't put a plaster on it and it's healed. It's something that constantly grows, and so like it's a journey. And like Bridge the Gap allowed me to then go to Alpha, then allowed me to then go to church and be around Christians who just loved me and wanted to share the love of Jesus, which then allowed me to then open my heart to Jesus, and that's where the healing came from, and that's when the cloud started to shift, and like it sounds crazy to some people, but like from those transformations and those moments, like the cloud shifts. It does.
We're going to a local football ground to meet a few more of the lads from Bridge the Gap. Could be an opportunity for me to show off my football skills. West Ham's finest, I am. We're meeting Tristan Lurie, the founder of Bridge the Gap, to hear what the vision behind it all is.
It must have been quite a big decision to leave quite a stable job at a reputable football club and walk into what was probably the unknown. Tell me a bit about why you called it Bridge the Gap, what it actually is and what your hopes are for it.
Yeah, I think for me,
I was on a plane to South Africa, and I basically got this vision about having a football program, and then how do we then bridge the gap between where we play football and the church itself. For many young guys, they love football, and millions across the whole world love football, but they don't love Jesus. So for me, my heart is, how can we bridge that gap between that? And to be able to get people to come play football is easy, but when you bring them into a community that care about and want the best for them, get alongside them, to then invite them to church or Alpha and say, hey, come try this out. We've seen it happen multiple times, and now across the whole country. So that excites me. But the vision, I guess, for me, what is it's endless, because anywhere in the world plays football. So the vision is to have 50 locations by 2025 across the whole UK, and then eventually start to look to branch out across the world. When I look at my close 4 or 5 friends, most of them have struggled with mental health in some way. So if my close 4 or 5 friends are struggling with mental health, some of them who have had suicidal thoughts as well, then what is the impact wider than that? So for me, it's like, well, we need to create spaces where people can talk and can really open up. Otherwise, we're just going to have continual amount of people that are struggling from mental health, suffering in silence, and ultimately we will see suicide continue to increase. With that being the most like the highest cause of death for young guys under 45. 1 in 4 suffer from mental health. So we need to, and for me, and bridge the gap, when I say we need to actually really create spaces where people can be themselves, but to be their true self. And I reckon a lot of them would say it's a community that just is an incredible place to be at.
Yeah, I asked one of them earlier when I was walking in. They were like, I love everything, but I can't stand that Tristan guy.
You know what? And that's why I'm here, not on the pitch.
No, I'm only joking, man. When I hear you talk, I feel like there's a deeper thing there. Like, it's not just football, it's not just community. There's something deeper that's driving you. What is that?
Yeah, for me, it's my faith. So for me, faith comes first in everything I do, and then my passion for football is just that's just always there as well. So for me, it was like, how can I bring these two things together? Like I've seen people go through many struggles, come be in church, and just have this sense of, wow, this is peaceful. This is something, I need this in my life.
That's amazing. Well, Coach Gareth Bell, Chamberlain, back to Coach Josh Rawton, and Guvna B. You ain't seen nothing yet, mate.
Yeah, let's definitely play some football. Ready? I think so. Yeah, sure.
Whenever be. Oh my gosh, that's my face.
So this one's for you. Love that. And Josh, we've got you on the blue team.
Love it. Nice.
Obviously, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. But at the end of the day, it's just kicking the ball in the back of the net.
Or not.
Or not. But like, when it comes down to it, what's it really about for you, man? What's the bottom line?
The bottom line for me is the thing that properly changed my life and got me through everything was coming to know Jesus and having a relationship with Jesus.
What I think is quite cool is often when people talk about faith in church, almost feels like it belongs in its own little box. But with you, it feels like it goes hand in hand with playing football and doing the things that you love. Did you ever fear that, you know, having faith, you'd have to stop doing some of the things that you really loved?
100%. So when I came to Faith, I was working like for a recruitment company based in Southampton, like amazing company, like great guys. But I kind of like hid it for the first like 6 months that I was going to church. I was like, I can't really. I'm like this Jack the lad. I'm this guy that's in town every Friday, Saturday night. I'm the guy that like comes in, tells all the stories of his nights out. And then when I started to say, oh, I'm going to church tonight, or I'm going to Alpha, I was like, everyone's going to think I'm a weirdo, man. And then my family as well. That was the thing I was worried about, what my family's perception is going to be. But like, when they start seeing the change in my life, like, they start asking questions and they start feeling like some of the boys to here today, like some of them are my family, some of them are friends, and they've seen my life go from like to quite like darkness into light, and like that then creates thoughts in their head. And that's what my life's about. I just want people to come to know Jesus and to know that love, man.
Amazing. And how would you deal with, you know, if people come and they play and they miss just loads of goals that they should have scored, they're missing penalties? How do they come back from that? Like, what part does Jesus have to play
Why are you
in
asking
that?
Sam?
Luckily we have prayer, man. That we're praying for you.
No, to be fair, that isn't a massive part of faith, the fact that we don't have to do anything to earn that love, you know, like I had to score the winning goal to earn the love of my teammates, but when it comes to faith, Josh will be glad to know, you don't have to score any goals, man, you just got to come as you are. Do you know what I mean?
I will, I do.
Jesus loves you.
You tend to put in better performances in Portsmouth. Because sometimes when you play away, it's a bit harder, isn't it?
What would you say is a good performance? Scoring the winning goal or conceding 2 nutmegs? I don't know, but...
Listen, I'm not being funny. If England have a shocker in the Euros...
Who are they going to be calling up, you or me?
But no, it's good. They're doing some really good stuff, man. Beautiful thing in that it ends with guys feeling that they can open up more and be more vulnerable.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is cool. Mate, my legs don't work like they used to.
Good job someone else is driving, right?
Like, I can't even open this door.
The mental health crisis facing people, especially young people in the UK, is huge. And I don't think the church and Christians have always been renowned for knowing how to support people struggling with depression, anxiety, and grief. But over the last couple of years, as I've navigated my own mental health challenges, I've learned to open up, be more vulnerable, and to take my time processing my feelings and my grief. I know the church won't necessarily be the place where all of our mental health issues are fixed, but it can be and is becoming somewhere safe to be heard and to start the conversation.